Haha, well now. We call this the act of goaltending. But there are several very important differences between Leafs goaltending candidates that you should know about. Last time we talked about John Gibson, and it's kind of funny because that was 2 goaltender videos in a row with Thatcher Demko and the Corey Schneider thing, and then John Gibson, and now 2 videos later we're going over yet another goaltender whom apparently the Leafs have their sights on, which is definitely not the conversation I thought we would be having here. We're going over on the TSN 1050 from the other day and talking about who Chris Johnston said could be this target. Reporter Chris said on the radio that the Leafs could be interested in Sens goalie Matt Murray. There is a Sault Ste. Marie connection with Kyle Dubas. Hashtag Go Sens Go. Now, this is super interesting to me, mostly because if I think about the goaltending candidates that the Maple Leafs might have their eyes on, obviously the ones that come to mind are the ones that people kind of consider as good. You have, of course, John Gibson, we talked about that the other day. There is Alexander Georgiev, who, I guess he's not Igor, but he certainly isn't terrible in New York. Now you have Matt Murray that has entered this conversation as well. And when I think about goaltenders that are quote-unquote good, Murray, unfortunately, is not one that immediately springs to my mind. Now, this is the connection they're talking about. Matt Murray, 28 years old, from Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada, 6'4", as a left-handed catching goaltender. We'll talk about the contract and stuff a little bit later, but Matt Murray was a Sioux Greyhound for a good chunk of the early 2010s, where he was their main starter in the 2013-14 season. Now, as his career went on, I think everybody kind of knows what happened to Matt Murray since then. He was drafted by the Penguins, he became a Wilkes-Barre-Scranton guy, and he eventually made the team when they made it to the Stanley Cup Finals 2 years in a row. He had 2 cups in his rookie season, which is kind of wild to think about when you isolate just his rookie eligibility from his first season. But as his career went on, his numbers started to decline, eventually posting up an .899 in Pittsburgh in 2019-20. That was the last straw for Matt Murray, as the team ultimately chose Tristan Jarry over Murray, sending him over to the Ottawa Senators. Now, in the previous few years he has had in Ottawa, hasn't really been all too great. He had an .893 to kick off his campaign in 2020-2021 in 27 games. This season, he had a .906 save percentage in 20 games played as well. Certainly not the .930 save percentage he had with the Penguins in 2015-16, but this guy still is 28 years old, so you could make the argument that, goaltenders don't really peak until 29, 30-ish, so there still is somewhat of a timeline here for Matt Murray to become the best version of himself. It's just the unfortunate truth that sometimes when goaltenders make the league too early and are so good so early, it sets an unexpected precedence that is unfulfillable towards the rest of their careers. But I'm not going to go out there and say that Matt Murray is definitively that. It's just unfortunate to see that his numbers have been tanking. The guy had an .899 save percentage in his last year in Pittsburgh. That's definitely not great. But now you take a look at Matt Murray and the rehabilitation he has done for his body. He was injured for a good chunk of this season, which is why he only played a limited sample of games, and he was sent over to Belleville in the AHL as well. And of course, you got to feel for the guy, right? You want to see players stay healthy, stay active, and actually be good. But for Matt Murray, it's been unfortunate to see his career go the way it has. We all just hope that he's able to rebound in the proper ways necessary for him to become a starter once again. It's just, who knows if that starting job would even be available in Ottawa if the Toronto Maple Leafs are in there trying to look for this guy instead as well. Matt Murray to Toronto is a super interesting conversation to me because the guy's making $6.25 million a year until the end of 2024. I've seen a lot of people go out there and say, wait a minute, this guy's super expensive and he's not that great comparative to the contract. Why would the Toronto Maple Leafs be interested in this guy? Well, there is a salary retention conversation to happen there. If the Maple Leafs do acquire a player like Matt Murray, you could, in theory, ask Ottawa to retain some salary. You could also debate that Matt Murray isn't really the most valuable of assets anyway because of the factors we just discussed, the fact that the guy is getting older, his numbers are getting worse, and he's pretty expensive at $6 million. Who knows if the Ottawa Senators would be interested in making a trade with Matt Murray while retaining some of that salary. And if Toronto was going to go out there and keep this guy on their roster, who knows what other moves could be at the table as well. I'd seen a few Leafs fans going out there and saying things like, hey, if we trade for Matt Murray on salary retained, we could also trade away Peter Mrazek and open up the door for another goaltender to come in here and take over that spot. We can have a duo of Matt Murray and X, whether that X is Alexander Georgiev or John Gibson or whatever. There are a few options here. And when I start to think about Matt Murray as a backup goaltender, especially playing behind a defense like Toronto, it does kind of placate my worries about his potential quote-unquote decline. Because I don't think it would be too unfair to say that the Toronto Maple Leafs are a better team than Ottawa. Also, they do have a better D-core than Ottawa does. Sorry, but Brody, Muzzin, Giordano, comparative to like Zaitsev and the up-and-down Eric Bronstrom, it's not really the same. So when it comes to Matt Murray potentially rebounding and revitalizing his career, I do think the Toronto Maple Leafs would give him a better opportunity to do that rather than the Ottawa Senators, especially contextually speaking with where the Sens are going. I know Pierre Dorion said that the team is going to rebound and they're not going to be a cellar or a bottom feeder or a lottery team anymore, but come on. Am I a bad guy for saying I have my doubts? And besides, when you talk about Jack Campbell and the situation with him potentially costing the Leafs some extra money and the contract negotiations not really going all too well according to everything we've heard in the media up to this point, obviously things can change. I'm recording this video on June 14th, so by the time it's uploaded on the 15th, who knows if there's a contract re-signing already in place. Things change quickly in the hockey world, don't they? So who knows if this is even a possibility here, but I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. If the Maple Leafs are indeed interested in Matt Murray, not just because of his situation, oh, he's a goaltender that could be on the rise again if you give him a proper team. Also, he's a Sioux guy, and Kyle Dubas was a Sioux guy as well. We know the memes about the Maple Leafs just getting all the former Greyhounds in their system. It is kind of interesting to me to see what would be the trade package. If you're a Maple Leafs fan, talk in the comments. What do you think you would give up to a Senators team if you're trying to get Matt Murray, potentially with salary retained as well? And if you're a Senators team looking for a suitor for this goaltender and you're being asked to retain salary, what do you think the price is as well? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. For me personally, I'm kind of thinking about, of course, you have to get a goaltender back the other way, I would think. That would probably be the natural assumption to make. So let's say, for the sake of throwing a name in there, Peter Mrazek is going over to Ottawa, but obviously you could throw in somebody else. I mean, the Maple Leafs do have Eric Källgren also there. Not really too sure if he is going to be a target, though. And there still is Ian Scott, Joseph Woll, assuming you re-sign Ian Scott. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, Peter Mrazek. And you add on another draft pick, like, I don't know, the Maple Leafs' second-round pick in 2024, because they don't have their seconds in 2022 or 2023. They've given away a lot of picks. In fact, the Maple Leafs only have 3 draft picks in the 2022 draft, their first, Winnipeg's third, and their own 7th. So there is a conversation in my mind that starts saying, like, yeah, I know it would be easy to just say draft picks because you don't want to modify the roster all too much, but are the Maple Leafs really going to be willing to trade away even more draft capital when they did so much to get rid of their draft capital this year, only to just lose to Tampa Bay? Now, I know they didn't lose in the embarrassing way they did against Montreal or against Columbus the previous few years, but they still lost. And losing will take a toll on you. Maybe this year should have been the year. Maybe this year was the best year possible for Toronto because, look, you lost to a Tampa squad that you had on the ropes. You barely edged out a loss against them, and now that team is in the Stanley Cup Finals against probably their biggest and baddest foe to date in the Colorado Avalanche. But that's besides the point. Is it a combination of a goaltender like Mrazek and a few draft picks here and there, or do you start digging into the Maple Leafs prospect system? Maybe a guy that can come in and immediately make an impact at the NHL level, who is at the tail end of that junior development or that overseas development, depending on what you want to target. Somebody that the Maple Leafs might not actually have room for in their lineup. Somebody that the Sens might say, hey, we have a spot for you right here. Middle 6, middle 4, defense pairing, whatever. We'll give you a stage and you'll shine on that stage. There are a few names that I think could come to mind in that respect because I do like the Leafs prospect system a lot. They have a lot of names that I've been a very big fan of. Ronnie Hirvonen is over here. You have Dmitry Ovchinnikov. You have Alex Steeves, of course. Rodion Amirov is there too, but yeah, brain tumor kind of changes the whole conversation, doesn't it? But either way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below if you are a Maple Leafs fan or a Senators fan. If there is a Matt Murray trade with salary retained, what do you think of that idea? And the reason I say the salary retained is because You know the Maple Leafs are not taking on a full $6 million cap hit for Matt Murray if that is the case, right? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed this British Troll 99. And bye.